All right, so I just have to start out by saying this whole situation with Sheduer Sanders is complete bullshit. By the way, how in the world is a four-way quarter competition going to work? How does that go? Is Joe Flacco going to be the starter? Joe Flacco is probably slated to be the starter. What, you have Kenny Pickett. You have one veteran who has won a Super Bowl. He's old. He doesn't really have too much left in the tank. You have a guy who has never really proven, didn't work out in Pittsburgh, can't really do anything. He's not very good at all. He has never put anything together. And then you have Dylan Gabriel, who you drafted like a round before Sheduer Sanders or something like that. So you drafted two quarterbacks, you signed two veterans. Deshaun Watson probably isn't playing. He's dealing with, I don't remember if it's Achilles, I don't remember what it is, but he's out for the year most likely. It's just like this quarterback room, this Browns organization is so screwed up at the moment. But is maybe Sheduer Sanders falling all the way down to where he fell, falling as far as he fell? Is this going to be good for him? No, I don't think it's going to help at all. I think his attitude, I think the way he thinks and looks at the game is so far gone. I'm not really too sure how much it could be fixed. Now look, I don't know nothing about the kid. I can't say anything personally, but from what I've seen on social media posts, from what I've seen on press conferences, some short videos, go to X, go to First Round Mock. Daniel Kelly, former NFL scout, he knows what he's talking about. He's got a lot on there about Sheduer Sanders. He's got videos linked. He has his report linked. And, this is, the biggest thing that I don't like about this past draft weekend is how much they put the spotlight on Sheduer Sanders. Okay? There are 500 players that are getting ready to be drafted, okay? And out of those, 340 240, 250 some players are drafted, right? So how much attention did you give Sheduer Sanders to any of the other players that were drafted? One player was drafted, okay, talk to him, talk about him for a few minutes, and okay, let's move on to Sheduer again. Why don't we talk about some other players as well? Okay, there is some bullshit going around out there about him being people are saying it's a bad look on the NFL, and there's racism involved. Like shut the frick up, okay? Because that's not the case, okay? We're long past that. We're long past all of those arguments, the racism, all that crap. We're long past. I mean, we should be, okay? That shouldn't even be what's coming up in discussion. Why don't we look at the way he acts on social media? Why don't we look at, why don't you go and evaluate his film? I can't say personally I have extensively watched his film. I watch a couple of things here and there, but if you really want analysis, if you really want, true analysis and people who truly sit there, watch film, and do their homework and do their shit and they know what they're talking about, go over to East Coast Gridiron, go to listen to him, go listen to what he has to say, go listen to First Round Mock, Daniel Kelly, go listen to what these guys have to say about Sheduer Sanders, about his talent. That he just wasn't as good as everyone, or he's not as, he's not everything that everyone hyped him up to be. I'm not talking personally on that kid. I don't know him personally or nothing like that, but you can kind of put some of the pieces together when you look through social media, and I know sometimes the media is misleading, but if you look at videos about him, look at the way he's talked, he's carried himself, it's not really ideal. And then on top of that, you go and pay attention to what his dad has done. I mean, his dad has been loud, his dad has been saying stuff, Deion Sanders, of course. I think his dad is another huge reason why. Like no one barely even talked about Shiloh Sanders, the other brother that was coming out. Went to Tampa. No one talked about him at all. It's just Sheduer Sanders. And Deion Sanders is a big issue. I'm pretty much sure he said, don't quote me, but I'm pretty much I saw that he said something along the lines of, who's management? I'm going to make sure, this or this is done or whatever. Like, this was Kevin Stefanski's job is probably about as good as gone. Deion Sanders is going to have way too much say in what happens, and especially in an organization, the Browns. He's probably going to have say over the owner when the owner probably stepped in and said, "Hey, draft him." Otherwise, I don't think he would have been drafted by the Browns yet. I don't think he would have been drafted yet. I think it was the owner stepping in and saying, "Hey, draft Sheduer Sanders." And Sheduer Sanders lifted this thing where he was like, "Okay, I'll play for any team. Draft me. I'm not going to limit any teams now. Like, really? If you're going to get drafted in the first place, you got to get up, you got to go work and do your absolute best to go and do what you could do to elevate the team, to do what you got to do. And then he says things like, oh, I'm going to change the culture, winning culture, and this and that. Like, some of the things he just says and the way he carries himself is so scary for NFL teams. Like I said, the talent on film. Now, I'm not directly talking for these guys. Go watch their stuff. That's the best way to know. They'll tell you about Sheduer Sanders. They'll tell you their opinions, and their opinions were Sheduer Sanders is not a player that should be drafted in the first round, or he's not, or at least he's not as good as everyone else said he is. His last name is Sanders. It's Deion Sanders' son. He's a quarterback. He's flashy, but that's kind of like half of his issue, I think. He's a little cocky. He's a little full of himself. And NFL teams are scared all to hell. But we got to stop with the bullshit of like the racism stuff. When the first 3 picks were, I'm not even going to get more into that. I'm not going to even feed that element anymore. That's not going to be fed any food for thought. No. But you really look at Deion Sanders, the way he has handled the situation, Sheduer Sanders, just the way the whole situation has been handled, it's pathetic. And I don't blame NFL teams for staying far away from that. That is toxic. You don't want that in your locker room. Hell no. The Browns didn't even want that in their locker room. No one wanted that in the locker room. I think the Browns were forced to draft him. I think the GM, I think the Browns head coach, GM, they've probably waived their job once they drafted Sheduer Sanders. Now look, I want Sheduer Sanders to be great. I want all these young players to come in the league and figure it out and be something for themselves. I wish nothing but the best. But at the end of the day, there's only 53 teams and 53 players, 53 spots on each team. Okay. So it's just like, where's the talk we're giving to these other kids that are being drafted, man? They worked hard to get to their spot too. They worked hard to get where they wanted to get to. They were drafted too. Why draft weekend? It was kind of ruined, to be honest with you, by the whole Sheduer Sanders situation. You can say, oh, why you bitching? Why you doing this and that? But, well, I mean, it's just, I really just think the whole situation is kind of just ridiculous, annoying, and a whole load of bullshit. I apologize for the cursing. I apologize for all that this episode. I just had to come out here and kind of just like spew my words, spew my thoughts in the situation. It's ridiculous. Okay, he was drafted in the 5th round. Grow up. Let's see if he's going to go work hard, have him go work hard. I was kind of thinking, I think I started talking about this earlier. Maybe him being drafted, him falling so far is like a good thing for him to see, like, okay, maybe I'm not all I thought I was. But it seemed like it only made the situation worse. So, like I said, I wish nothing but the best for these young players and to see them succeed and follow their dreams. But at the end of the day, that's just not the reality for everyone. It's just the truth. So, just kind of like, that's all I got for this video. Just want to come out here and kind of rant, kind of all over the place. Mine is all mumbled jumbled, but want to come out here and get my thoughts on this. So, you guys let me know what you think about this situation. I think it's just a whole load of BS. It's ridiculous already. Appreciate you guys for watching. As always, my views don't represent the show views or anyone else that is on this show. This is me coming from me. Doesn't mean that anyone else thinks this way or, let them make their own opinions. If you want to come after me, come after me. I'm here. Bring it.